Good morning, comrades. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back here at the Nürburgring, to be more precise, at Manthey-Racing. Welcome to a video that many of you are very eager to see. And to be honest, we're also kind of eager to talk about what has happened. We would rather not talk about it, that it wouldn't have happened in the first place. But as many of you have seen on our social media accounts, in the community section on YouTube, the GT2 RS MR taxi of Apex had a minor injury, I would say. It's not a write-off, and that's why we're calling it a minor injury.
I think if you look at the parts down here, you can see this is just a small sampling. I really do like how Manthey laid out the rear bumper with the lights and everything. They did a nice job piecing it together for us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you look at the parts, how they're laid out, it was definitely an all-arounder.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this section. It was a 360-degree banger-uppers.
It was. The front left was okay, though.
Front left was okay, yeah, exactly.
And both doors, I think, are okay.
I think so. I think both doors are intact on the front left, and that's other than that about it. I mean, obviously roof, windshields, but, you know.
Yeah, so in today's video, we want to walk you through what has happened, roughly, what is currently happening in this whole process of assessing the damage and seeing how much it actually is, and what will be happening in the next couple of weeks when it comes to rebuilding the car, and when roughly you will hopefully be able to experience it again. Because, again, although it looks quite bad, it's actually fixable.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way I can describe this is that it hasn't had a huge impact, but it's had a lot of impacts. It's basically, we don't have an entire frame that's crushed, or an engine that's completely displaced from where it should be, or a complete broken drivetrain, but we have just, when you go around the car, you've got every little bracket, you know, front fender, we've got the, you know, the little air winglets here, you've got just all these little parts, the entire suspension, you know, it's just all these little things. I'm sure we'll go over that in a minute, but it was one of those impacts that was multiple impacts, but did a lot of little damage around the car.
Yeah.
And when you have a car that's of this value and replacement parts that are as much as they are, it adds up really quick.
And especially the fact that the car that goes quite fast and you would like to restore to original condition.
Yes.
Because I know like one or two people going to say, why would you bother like replacing this scratch here or isn't that?
You know, there's a couple things when you're talking about this car. You mentioned one really good thing, a car that goes this fast.
Yeah.
I was actually sitting on a plane. I was flying to Florida where I was going to see SSC was doing another run with the Tuatara, which is maybe something Misha and I can make another video on, you know, it could be kind of fun. But we were going to do a video, or I was going to watch the Tuatara run, and I'm sitting on an airplane. I don't have, people are calling me, I'm like, I can't really answer the call, it wouldn't work. And I see GT2 crashed. Now, when you know this car, unless I'm driving it, isn't going slow.
Yeah.
You know, maybe Misha and I are out at the end of the day, you know, cruise around lap or something like that, but it's going fast.
Yeah, it reaches close to 300 kilometers per hour in Schwedenkreuz.
And if you see GT2 crashed, you know that the GT2 doesn't necessarily crash and get off light.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I prepared myself, you know, maybe it's a write-off, you know, we'll see what happens. And
calling the stewardess, can I order a whiskey?
Exactly, I need a bottle of whiskey. No, the whole bottle. But, you know, I've gotten to the point where every time this car goes out, you know there's a risk. Every time something's going on, you know there's a chance. And all you can do is say, look, I want to put, you know, the people behind the wheel that I think have the best chance of minimizing that damage and bringing the car back as safe as possible every time if possible, you know. And so, yeah, so I was prepared for a big damage. Obviously, pictures started coming through, and yeah, your heart sinks a little bit when you see, you know, the car. I mean, okay, we got to admit, it looked pretty badass sitting on the tow truck with the diffuser down on the ground. I mean, we should get airbags on it, I think.
It was a full Bossazoko style with like a 30 degrees camber negative and...
So it looked pretty trick, you know, but yeah, so your heart sinks a little because this is a car that we really do love. You know, this isn't just like a tool. This is a car that we actually, you know, I'd never get in a Porsche. They all look the same, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw the GT2 from MR, and I was like, that thing's badass. Yeah. Went for a ride in it, like, man, this thing it's fast. The levels of grip are amazing. And when you look at this car now with the big wing, with the big GT2 intakes, you hear it start and it growls, you know what I mean? It's not the high-pitched GT3 RS, which I think the GT3 RS rivals what a Speciale sounds like. It's one of the best sounding NA cars. You know, obviously it's all subjective, but it's up there. But this thing it's a special car. And every time you get in it, you're reminded of that. So it does, it kind of, it hurts a little when you see it like that. You're kind of kicking the butt.
And it has been with us for now, what, 4 years?
Yeah.
It's
we got it. Well, we got it in 19. So so this is its 4th season with us.
Yeah. So we got quite emotionally attached. So let's talk about maybe briefly what has happened.
Yeah. So I mean, it's we've all watched a lot of video afterwards to see what's going on, and without going into too much detail, we can simply drum it up to a driver situation. It was just a situation where obviously it's well known Tim was driving the car, and he's very open about it and says, look, this was just I was driving the car, I was under control of it, and that's it. When you do this car, we've looked into it, as just at 1,700 laps. Of those 1,700 laps, Tim is over 1,400 of them just in this car alone, and he had a moment where the car lost basically balance, and he was unable to get it back at that point, and it was just an unfortunate situation. It's we're not going to chalk it up to any more than that. Sometimes we just have to own these things and say, I fucked up. I didn't. I'm the driver. I didn't bring it back. There's nothing more to say. Yeah. And so he's been very responsible with that and very professional about it. So I really appreciate him doing that and not coming up with 400 excuses and just saying, look, what do you want me to say? And what's interesting is this is the second time that this car's had a crash.
Yeah.
First time we weren't majorly public about it. I made Instagram posts, so we didn't hide it. It was on my Instagram immediately. It's one thing that we've learned is that with what we do with social media, we want to post immediately, share it with you guys.
To avoid all the speculation.
Avoid speculation.
And speaking of which, I just want to briefly say that when I made a post about it, I said it's no driver or technical error. That was at the first glimpse. I thought that it was actually, the car slides over coolant. That was That was my first initial thing with the way the car behaved. But after a more detailed analysis, we can now conclude that it had to do something with not to do with the coolant. Let's say it that way.
So the bottom line is, you look at all the situations. I don't remember where I was going before, but the second time it was crashed. And so this is the second time that the car had been crashed. The first time, a smaller damage. I think it was somewhere around 60, 70,000 all done.
Small, so you can guess how much this could
exactly. Small crash. I didn't, I don't want to be sitting here talking about 70,000 damages on the Nürburgring as a small crash, but comparatively, we'll put it into perspective. It was a small crash. It was just the right rear. Yeah. I could have reached in and worked on the motor through the fender, but comparatively, it was a light crash. It was the right rear wheel. The right rear wheel was destroyed. I think even the turbo went at that point. A couple things had to be replaced, but Manthey-Racing had that fix done, I think, in like 5 days. Yeah, it was incredible.
But it was also before the market was on it.
It was a suspension was on it, but there was. I believe it was with suspension, but no wing yet, no full MR kit. But that happened, and everyone kind of got a shock. Okay, we're gonna be careful with this car. Obviously, drive it fast, but be cautious of what it's capable of and how it can bite, and so as things were going, we're running a car that is constantly fast. It's a fast car. Never did we say go do a slow taxi lap, go do a slow media lap, go do a slow cruise lap. Like I said, I'm probably the only person that ever just went out and cruised it, and I love driving this car at 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 15 minutes. It didn't matter. It was fun to drive just for the experience, the noises it makes, the sounds it makes. It was fun. But when you drive this fast, this many laps, we don't use lap time to sell taxi laps. No. But what I can do is use lap time to give a reference of the speeds that it was operating at. This car is regularly plus or minus a few seconds from 7 minutes. Yeah. If I go through the list, believe me, I've looked at a lot of lap videos to compare what happened this time to compare to previous laps. And I would say 40% of those laps are under 7 minutes when you just grab random ones. It's a very fast car. And if you say, this car can do 630, can do 620 BTG theoretically, it doesn't matter how fast a car can go. You have to understand that sub 7 is a very fast lap just for the simple fact of you are on the Nürburgring. There are other cars on the track. You are traveling at a speed that it doesn't matter what car you're in. The speed itself, compared to what the conditions can be and the environment, is all that you need to know about. That's really what it boils down to, is at these speeds, you have a risk. And that's why we do hold back and not push for that extra 10, 15 seconds, because we have to keep that buffer. But you have to realize that at that speed, there's still a huge chance for anything to happen.
Yeah. A deer can cross the track?
Oh yeah, Sebastian had something like that happen. Yeah, exactly. You know,
Could be anything.
It could be anything. It could be a bird. I've been in cars going quite fast and have a bird hit. If you're in the middle of a turn and you're concentrating on setting the car up and doing all this, and a bird hits your windshield, that could make you jump. That could startle you. And at that speed, it's over.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for literally anything at those points, and things can happen very quick.
Good. So I guess let's maybe walk over the damage now that
I mean, the car, what I will say is when the car got crossed up, it was at 195 roughly kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
Okay?
So what we can quickly say what basically happened from a technical standpoint. Yep. The car did full rotation,
exactly
180 degrees, and at 190 kilometers, 195.
Yeah, so when he was at 195, the car kicked out. He was started understeer moment, which the back end responded and swung out into a full snap oversteer moment. He was able to catch it and scrub some speed immediately. The initial catch that he was able to do got the car straightened up and going parallel with the track, which was huge, because this was at the between Mutkurve and Stylstrecke. There's a right-hander that I guess doesn't really have a name. TJ Morley turn. And that turn is where it happened at. Now, if you know this turn, you're doing in this car 190 plus, 195, 200 is possible, of course, at this right-hander, and the guardrail is no further than us to that back wall right there, if that. The guardrail is right there. It's not a very far runoff, and luckily he was able to at least get it straight to where the momentum of the car was going parallel with the track when it rotated backwards, and this was simply rolling backwards, speed scrubbing down, and by the time it hit the wall, the first wall, it was at about 110, glanced off that wall, then back over to the other side, and was able to slow down in the high 90s for the second glance and then roll to a stop. Had the impact been at 195, we would be talking a completely different situation, potentially bodily harm, a totaled car, etc. It would have been a very different situation. So the quick reactions at least got it saved to a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been nice if it could have been saved all the way, but it wasn't. It just wasn't possible. In that moment, it didn't happen. So the damage was limited. But as Misha said, we had a rotation, one side hit, the other side hit, and that's really the bulk of it. And you can see that by the bumper. You know, you can see two sides hit, bam, bam, well in reverse, and then we can talk about everything that hit. This is a low car with wide hips.
Yeah, maybe we can go to the hips and...
Let's go to the back and we'll talk about it. So after the initial rotation, the car was, let's say this is the guardrail, the car's running backwards and backs into it with the right rear. It backs into it almost on, like say, a 30-degree angle.
Yeah.
And that took out this whole section, completely destroyed this wheel. That was the initial impact here. And of course, the end plate is what actually hit the guardrail, because this car again sits pretty low. The guardrails are substantial there, so the end plate hit the guardrail and actually bent the upright over. As this all got pushed in, we've obviously damaged the intercooler. This turbo took a pretty good shot, so the turbo's destroyed. I mean,
yeah, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, you know, it took a big hit here. We've got brake disc that's damaged. We've got actually all four shocks have to be replaced because every corner took an impact. So both axles, all four shocks will get replaced. Brake disc, I mean, obviously we can get into small stuff from bushings to uniballs to wheel bearings and things of that nature. That's all obvious damage. But what happens when you have an impact like this is...
Also the mechanical, like turbo.
Exactly, the turbo's damaged, the exhaust is completely gone, so you've got both catalytic converters, the exhaust, you've got every single mounting clip. I mean, you've got air intakes that are made out of carbon, which are completely smashed up. You've got a rear fender, which this, as you can see, it's all molded in. So this actually has to be cut here, it has to be cut here, and this whole rear quarter, I guess, has to be completely replaced. As you start doing that, you've got the mounting brackets that are, you know, in the back for all of these components. You have every little piece. If you look, this is, you know, these frame structures are all, or what bolts down to the frame are all bent in. You got parts falling off on the ground. This actual frame rail on the chassis right here has been bent over. Manthey-Racing is actually cool enough that they're going to come in and they're going to actually take this all apart, and they're going to use their chassis measurement tool for us to go ahead and show the dimensions and let us see how everything has been moved. So you can see that everything was damaged. Look at the rear trunk lid. This is a Manthey-Racing part. This piece right here, when it got busted over, basically it got flexed in between the uprights and smashed in. You've got the little rear flap that's busted. It's one of those things where, like I said, the damage isn't like a big semi-truck ran into the back of the car and smashed it. But it's enough that every single piece has to be touched, and every bracket and every mount, tail lights, everything has to be replaced.
Yep.
So it ends up being that it's a very vulnerable situation, you know what I mean? It's why you might see, a lot of like the race cars, when Manthey-Racing builds the Cup MR, they've got all the cooling set in the middle of the car, and the outside is just ducting, it just channels airflow. If they have a crash in the front right, it just smashes it up, they replace it, and it doesn't stop the car from racing. Yep. Obviously, a road car is packaged a little bit differently. There's different safety things, and a road car might need different airflow for low speed that a race car only needs airflow for high speed. There's a lot of different variables, but generally a road car is going to be packaged much more tightly because it has a lot more stuff in it. Yeah. So, yeah, this corner right here alone is a considerable damage, and what you have to think about is the price of the parts on this car. Yeah. It's a GT2 RSMR, it's their flagship. I mean, yeah, you could say, okay, you've got the hypercar level V918 or whatever it might be, but this is their GT road car flagship car. And whether you like it or not, whether you think it should be that way or not, it carries the biggest price tag for the parts. Yeah. If you were to buy this car in parts, it would probably be a €5 million car just in parts alone. Yeah. Obviously, you don't pay $5 million for the car, but that's how it ends up working, unfortunately, So this is where you come into this whole balance of, is a car a write-off or not? Someone say, well, that's not a write-off. You could fix that and still drive it. Is it a financial write-off? Does the repair and the cost of the parts cost more than the car? Yep. That's how this comes into play, and that's something important for people watching this to understand, that the difference between a financial write-off and a car that's totaled in the way that some people might see it is two different things. Yeah. So, yeah.
So can we talk about the value of the damage as
well
now?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I put on Instagram, guess how much it is, whoever's the closest going to get a part of the car. I mean, we're going to have plenty of parts, there's no doubt. I think I'm going to keep all 4 shocks, those are mine. I want to keep those.
And the wing.
And the wing is definitely mine. All the cool stuff, sorry guys. But yeah, so the reality is, when I saw the pictures, I was thinking, that's probably 160 in damage, that was my guess. But the things that I obviously didn't know about were, we've got two or three brake discs that are damaged. Okay, well, don't look up the price of those. We're talking, I think off the top of my head, 7,000-8,000 a disc, price wise. We've got 3 brake discs that are damaged. We've got 3 wheels that are damaged. We've got obviously a turbo. We've got a wing. We've got the diffuser, the underbody trays. All of this stuff all these components are carbon fiber. So
the wheels are magnesium, which is like 20,000 euro for us.
They're very expensive. Yeah, the wheels are they're up there. I don't have to get out my list to give you, but what I can tell you is that the total damage on the entire car is 292,000. Okay, and that's 292,000 with tax and 245 roughly without tax. Obviously, 19% tax. Do the math, but it's 292, 245 depending on what way you want to look at it. And the interesting part about it is, of this 292,000. About 18, including tax, is the labor.
Okay.
So that means that over 274,000 in parts. 18,000 labor, 270,000 in parts.
Now comes the next question. Apart from my uncle in Poland can do it cheaper, right, Adrian?
Adrian, who do you know?
I know someone.
The next question comes, is it not cheaper to get rid of the car and buy a new one?
No, it's actually not. There's 2 ways to go about this. We could obviously push to say, look, the 290 that it would cost to fix the car, plus what we could get for the car in a salvage situation or in a resale.
We can start a GoFundMe.
Yeah. not going there. If I took the $290 that it would cost to repair this car,
Yeah.
and then I took what we could get for this car is easily worth several $100,000, easily as it sits. I mean, you've got a lot of components that are still good, and somebody could send it to Adrian's uncle in Poland, you know, and have this thing fixed up real well.
Yeah.
The issue is that this is our car.
Yeah.
This is a car that we got at Apex, and I know this is our car. You know, this is a car that has the exact spec that I wanted. I didn't want red interior. I didn't want all these different things. And this is, to me, this is my car even. You know what I mean? This is a car that I want, and I want this car. I don't want another car. So the reality is that, yes, maybe we could write it off and we could, you know, send it on its way. I would really prefer for this to be the car that we keep. Now, if all the calculations are done, it's like, wow, gosh, there's more damage. There's more issues. And we could save the $290 on the repair and maybe still sell it for a couple $100,000, right? Well, then at that point, it might start to make sense to look at getting rid of it. But at this moment, I do not want to get rid of it. I want to keep it and I want to repair it. That's, for me, I think just I don't want to say a sentimental thing, but just, you know, this is Apex Taxi. This is it. It's not a car that we're looking to resell. If you guys ever want to talk about, I just bought this car and over the last 5 years, it lost $100,000. It didn't lose $100,000 until you try to sell it.
Yeah.
If you never sell the car, you never lost the money. You paid for it what you bought it for. If you've bought a house in the last 5 years and in the last 2 years of COVID, the house value has just gone through the roof, that's done you no good unless you sold it.
Yeah.
You've got no financial gain unless you sell it or refinance, I guess, and take the money out. But the point is that you've not lost money until you sell the car. So with this car, I don't have the intent of selling it. It's not a car that's on my list of cars to sell. Everything else might be, you know, fair game, but this is a car that I want to keep. So I'm not losing out on, you know, this value of having a crashed car. So at this point, it's, to me, still financially viable to repair the car, and it's a car that we should repair.
And then comes, of course, the most obvious question from some people. What's all the fuss about because it's insured, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, the car's insured. All of our cars are insured. We've had, between the rental cars, the taxis, personal cars, heck, I crashed the F80. You know, I ran it into a wall. You know, I mean, luckily it was slow speed. It was a pretty stupid thing, but it happened, you know. And that alone, I think, came out to $8,000.
Yeah.
I could have easily called insurance and put that on insurance, but I didn't. I didn't put the F80 on insurance. I didn't put the GT2 when it crashed on insurance. I didn't put the 720 on insurance when it crashed. Not one rental car crash has been registered with insurance. In fact, I've not registered one crash on insurance of ours in any case. The only time that I've registered insurance with a crash on the Nürburgring was when a car lost coolant and I ran it off the track at Brünchen. There was about, I don't know if some of you guys might have seen the video that I did on it. There ended up being, I think, 10,000 in damage to the car, and the other driver's insurance paid for that.
Yeah.
It wasn't our insurance. If I wouldn't have put it on our insurance, I would have paid for it. And the reason is that we're running ultimately a business on the Nürburgring. We're sharing an experience with, you know, a community, and this is actually kind of interesting. We have limited this car. We're not out selling laps with this. We're only sharing it with our communities.
Yeah.
It's only people that know Misha, my channels, the team's channels, and the Apex socials. That's the only people who are really getting a chance to jump in this. They have to know who Apex is and find Apex and book it. So we're doing something with a community, and that's important to protect. If every single crash that we have gets registered with insurance, they're going to say, sorry guys, we're not insuring these cars anymore. We're not going through with this anymore. And so our insurance company, we've got a good relationship with, because we do a lot of different things with it. Real estate, a lot of customers who we finance houses with end up with this insurance company just by chance because they're a great insurance company. We do all of the Apex stuff, all my private cars, private houses, all these things are insured with them. And finally, this is the first time that I said, hey, I want you to register damage. I'm not sure that I'm going to give it to you, but I want you to register it. I did that the day after the crash. And I said, you know, I expect it to be around 160. Don't know yet, but I want you to be aware that this crash happened and I may be calling you for it. And the real reason is that when you boil it down, almost 300,000 in damage, these are the big crashes that I say, okay, this is why we have the insurance. We don't have it for the only 60, only 70. We have it for the bigger ones. And when I look at the premiums that we've paid in all of what we do, to these insurance companies, it's been far more than this damage on this car. So at some point, you have to say, okay, collectively, I've paid this much in insurance. Now we've got a bigger damage, let's go for it. The risks are that they could say, okay, great, here's your $292,000. We're not going to register. We're not going to insure this car as a taxi anymore. That is a real possibility. So that could be something that comes up. They now have the quote. They know that it was $292. They're scratching their heads, figuring out what they're going to do. We've spoken about different offers. We've spoken about different options of me picking up a portion of it, them paying the whole thing. You know, with the goal, obviously, of being able to continue insuring the car in the future. So we're in an open dialogue, seeing what possibilities that we have, so that we can continue business with the car. They realize that we've had plenty of things that we could have claimed. We haven't even claimed as much as a windshield with them.
Yeah.
So they realize, and I think they see, that our intent is to be good customers and not to just take advantage of the insurance company. And we have a situation here that finally is worthy of insurance. So we're working that balance right now. If the insurance company comes back and says, yeah, you're not going to have any coverage at all or anything, then we obviously have to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, and this is where we stand right now. We're in the discussion, negotiation process. I expect the insurance company to come out and look at this car probably in the next week, just so that they can get eyes on. They've already said, yeah, we don't think we're going to find somebody that's more knowledgeable about Porsche. So we're not really worried about coming and contradicting. We obviously know that what we have here is an honest take on the situation, but to check our mark on our application, we at least have to say we saw the car.
Yeah. So that's where we are currently right now. What is going to happen next?
Yeah, so basically what happens next is the Manthey team is going to basically strip down the car. So I've obviously said, look, we have to do this. Let's get this going. You know, no matter what happens with the insurance negotiations, etc., we have to repair this car. Something's got to be done with it. So Manthey's putting in place the delivery times on all the parts and getting an idea of what's going to happen. They're going to basically take down basically start stripping the car down. So that really Adrian and Misha can get a couple videos of them measuring the chassis, so we can see the before and after measurements. Then the car is actually going to go to Stuttgart, and in Stuttgart they're going to put the car on an actual laser measuring device that's going to measure the entire chassis, and they're going to put the car back together, or at least the chassis portion, make sure that everything is within OEM factory spec. And that's something we're actually going to be invited to go down and look at as well, which will be really cool to see it on the laser jig. I've never seen it actually happen before. So we'll get to go down and do that. And then when it comes back, it's going to be putting the car back together. You know, to do this, the motor's coming out, the brand new transmission we just put in is coming out. You know, all of this, the car has to basically be stripped down to a chassis that these guys can work on. So we're looking for a full repair of about 5 weeks.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at, which is actually funny because we're thinking it's going to be about 2 weeks that it has to go to the chassis shop. And that's just because of scheduling and, you know, okay, we get it this day, we can work on it that day. So Manthey-Racing can actually have this car disassembled, reassembled in less than 2 weeks. And that just goes to show, when I mentioned earlier, $15,000 without tax of labor on the car, it's not that much labor. You know, if you really think about the entire value of the entire operation, it's not that much labor. So they're going to be in a position where they can put the car together pretty fast.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wait 5 more weeks till people can go out in it, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, you know, we want to continue offering this car, and it's an exciting car. It's an amazing car. You know, it's you can't get this experience any other way. You know, unless you want to buy one. I mean, obviously there's a handful of guys that have done that and have bought it, but this is the way to get the experience in what is still the fastest car on the Nürburgring.
Car,
you know, that can change it. I've said since 2019 we got this car. That could change at any minute. Guys, this is currently the fastest car, but look at it, 2019, 20, 21, 22, here we are. Different cars come at it and go for it. But this car, you know, years ago, I mean, when did they develop this car? 10 years, you know what I mean? It's still today standing. There's going to be something that comes along, you know, one of these hypercars that you know, Aston Martin or you know,
AMG1.
You know, these cars are going to come, and naturally, what can you do at that point? You know what I mean? It's almost a different league and a different ballpark at that point, and that's understandable. It's like, you know, if you take the old Bella lap record and you take it now to the new Porsche lap record, I mean, it's you're fighting with different weapons at that point, and that's okay. But it's still amazing that this far, you know, this many years later, this car is still there, and it's still up there, and if something beats it, it might be by a second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So yeah, the plan is 5 weeks, continue offering this car, get back out there. We're excited to be saying, hey, July, August, September should be 3 full months that this car can be taking advantage of finally, you know, halfway normal year. I mean, I don't want to say normal year. I mean, you know, but finally, you know, some excitement at the Nürburgring, and yeah, we want to be back in it for July.
Yeah, by that time we're gonna have monkeypox here probably anyway.
Yeah, that's already here.
Yeah, but for people who have actually had booked this car by now, what can they do in the next 5 weeks? Like, I mean,
What do you want? What do you want?
I don't know, extend the booking, move it, or to
Yeah. So what we've done is anybody who's booked this car, obviously we hope that you guys understand that we don't want this. This isn't something we want. So obviously, if you're like, I just want to get on track, obviously we've got the M3 running. Anytime that I'm here, we know what we're doing with the GT86. I'm doing those laps anyways. If you've booked in this and you want to lap with me in the GT86, you're going to get that. Obviously, if you've booked in this car, hands down, we're just going to go do that and have fun. You can take the M3. If you have the ability to push it until July forward, then I would say do that. You know, that would be what would make the most sense, is push it back until July if you have that flexibility. And if you don't, reach out. We got some cool things. We're talking about M3 laps, GT86, just fun laps. It's no replacement, you know, but it's fun. And you know, we can talk about getting some merch as different, you know, placeholders and just supporters. But really, talk to us about what your needs are, because we're all here for the same reason. This is fun for us. This is enjoyable for us, and we want you guys to feel, you know, the same way. So if you do have a lap that's booked in the next couple weeks, and you don't have the ability to change it, just reach out and we'll do what's right.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's all there was to say. It's probably like what, half an hour long video by this point. Yeah, Adrian is probably already like needs some rest.
I get this guy a back brace.
Yeah, well, we need to get like a massive crane like this, like, you know, he'd be like full RoboCop here. Cool. Well, that's it. Obviously, if you have any other questions, let us know in the comments. Let us know. Yeah.
And we didn't get through all the damage. We've got
exactly.
front right. We've got the whole other side. This is all stuff that we'll be covering.
We'll cover in the next couple of videos.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let us know what you would like to see in the future videos, or like what exactly into detail we should talk about. And that's all there is to it. Thank you very much if you made it till the end of the video, you're tier 1.
Tier 1.
How
guys
you
are
used
tier
to
1.
say.
Yeah, how I used to say. I made a whole video on this.
You made 2 videos on this.
2 videos, yeah.
Actually, we're about to make 3 videos.
Were we? Oh yeah, but George had to leave.
Yeah, and then
Grease, boats.
boats, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so maybe I'll put a video out, we'll see.
Okay, maybe. So subscribe to his channel. There might be something at some point after the 6 other videos that he still has to publish. Thanks for watching. See you hopefully soon in this car on track. Bye.
Bye guys.